nor need we shrink from honestly facing conditions in our country today. This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance.
He carefully detailed the true. Words could not place bread before an impoverished people. Action was the order of the day.
We do not distrust the future of essential democracy.
Words could not place bread before an impoverished people. Action was the order of the day.
We do not distrust the future of essential democracy. The people of the United States have not failed. In their need, they have registered a mandate that they want direct, vigorous action.
As he turned to the task laid out before him, he frankly, I have no expectation of making a hit. He immediately called the...
In this nation, I see tens of millions of its citizens, a substantial part of its whole population, who at this very moment are denied the greater part of what the very lowest standards of today call the necessities of life. I see millions of families trying to live on income so meager that the pall of family disaster hangs over them day by day. Retained our faith in our own ability to master our own destiny. I affirm that life must be based on positive values, permanent values. The value of love will always be stronger than the value of hate.
Here in a few words, we might find the moral basis of his whole philosophy.
The value of truth and sincerity is always stronger than the value of lies and cynicism. No process has yet been invented which can permanently separate men from their own hearts and their own consciences.
The key to his political theories was expressed in a statement made in his first presidential campaign. The genius of America is greater than any candidate or any party. And further expounded when he said, I still know that the fate of America cannot depend on any one man. The greatness of America is grounded in principles and not on any single personality. His code of fair play was summarized in one single sentence.
Those words, freedom and opportunity, do not mean a license to climb upward by pushing other people down.
Although he was born and reared in relative luxury, Franklin Roosevelt was the constant champion of the rights and equities of the common man.
I am fighting, as I always have fought, for the rights of the little man as well as the big man, for the weak as well as the strong, for those who are helpless as well as those who can help themselves.
Looking deeper into the personality of Franklin Roosevelt, we find that he derived his greatest enjoyment from the most simple pastimes, the movies, basket picnics, his stamp collections, the ball game, or his brief holidays from the White House, because
there is a chance for a bit of sunshine, or a wetted line, or a biography, or a detective story, or even a nap after lunch. But above all, there is the opportunity for thinking things through.
his sense of humor often served as a buffer against the many criticisms that were heaped upon him. He would roar with laughter over a good joke, and often used one to illustrate a point.
Uncle Jed, said Ezra one day, "Bean't you getting a little hard of hearing?" "Yes," said Uncle Jed. "I'm afeard I'm getting a mite deep." Whereupon Ezra made Uncle Jed go down to Boston. Go down to Boston to see an ear doctor. Uncle Jed came back, and Ezra asked what had happened.
Germany, and how did he
Well,
survive
Uncle Jed,
as a
that
musician
doctor asked
during
me
the
if
war
I'd been
years?
drinking any.
No, Frank just said
And I said, yes, I've been drinking a mite. And then that doctor said, well, Jed, I might just as well tell you now that if you don't want to lose your hearing, you've got to give up drinking. Well, said Uncle Jed, I thought it over. And then I said, Doc, I like what I've been drinking so much better than what I've been a-hearing that I reckon I'll just keep on getting D.
That our well-being depends in the long run upon the well-being of our neighbors.
He once told us, underlying all of our efforts is the conviction that men cannot live unto themselves alone. A democracy, the right kind of democracy, is bound together by the ties of neighborliness. And he further advised,
The service of democracy is the birthright of every citizen, the white and the colored, the Protestant, the Catholic, the Jew, the sons and daughters of every country in the world who make up the people of this land. Democracy is every man and woman who loves freedom and serves the cause of freedom.
he recalled to us that democracy, in order to live, must become a positive force in the daily lives of its people. And with his fireside chats, he placed the nation's problems squarely before the people. Because, as he also said, the cornerstone of our whole democratic edifice is the principle that from the people and the people alone flows the authority of government.
Therefore, the only sure bulwark of continuing liberty is a government strong enough to protect the interests of the people, and a people strong enough and well enough informed to maintain its sovereign control over its government.
In view of the ominous events which were taking place in other lands, President Roosevelt felt that the American way of life should serve as a living example for all the world.
If the fires of freedom and civil liberties burn low in other lands, they must be made brighter in our own. If in other lands the press and books and literature of all kinds is censored, we must redouble our efforts here to keep it free. If in other lands the eternal truths of the past are threatened by intolerance, we must provide a safe place here for their perpetuation.
Striving to avoid the pitfalls that had delivered less fortunate people into the hands of dictators, President Roosevelt warned the nation,
Doctrines that set group against group, faith against faith, race against race, class against class, fanning the fires of hatred in men too despondent, too desperate to think for themselves. Those doctrines were used as rabble-rousing slogans on which dictators could rise to power. And once in power, they could saddle their tyrannies on whole nations, saddle them on their weaker neighbors. Yes, this is the danger to which we in America must begin to be more alert.
with full knowledge that the good neighbor policy
May you, by your deeds, show the world that we of the United States are one people, of one mind, one spirit, one clear resolution, walking before God in the light of the living on their weaker neighbors. Yes, this is the danger to which we in America must begin to be more alert.
With full knowledge that the good neighbor policy between nations could never be effective until it had become common practice at home, the president advised,
May you, by your deeds, show the world that we of the United States are one people, of one mind, one spirit, one clear resolution, walking before God in the light of the living. There is a mysterious cycle in human events. To some generations, much is given. Of other generations, much is expected. This generation of Americans has a rendezvous with destiny.
With those prophetic words, Franklin D. Roosevelt accepted the nomination for a second term as President of the United States. Even as he spoke, the cycle was in motion. Hitler's troops had entered the Rhineland. The Rome-Berlin axis was in the making. Sensing the danger in American acceptance of the isolationist theories, the president warned the nation,
You must master at the outset a simple but unalterable fact in modern relations between nations. When peace has been broken anywhere, the peace of all countries everywhere is in danger.
As the shadows of war lengthened and deepened across the world, President Roosevelt lashed out against the aggressor nations.
When an epidemic of physical disease starts to spread, the community approves and joins in a quarantine of the patients in order to protect the health of the community against the spread of the disease. War is a contagion, whether it be declared or undeclared. It can engulf states and peoples remote from the original scene of hostilities.
With Poland invaded and France and England already at war,
The brutal force of modern offensive war has been loosed in all its horror. New powers of destruction, incredibly swift and deadly, have been developed, and those who wield them are ruthless and daring. No old defense is so strong that it requires no further strengthening, and no attack is so unlikely or impossible that it may be ignored.
when Italy invaded France, the president expressed his complete contempt.
On this 10th day of June, 1940, the hand that held the dagger has struck it into the back of its neighbor.
As the smaller nations of Europe fell one by one, President Roosevelt pressed forward with his plan for Lend-Lease aid to the stricken nations.
The urgency is now. We believe firmly that when our production output is in full swing, the democracies of the world will be able to prove that dictatorships cannot win. But now the time element is of supreme importance. Every plane, every other instrument of war, old and new, every instrument that we can spare now, we will send overseas, because that is the common sense of strategy. The great task of this day, the deep duty that rests upon each and every one of us, is to move products from the assembly lines of our factories to the battle lines of democracy now. our country is going to be what our people have proclaimed it must be, the arsenal of democracy.
As the U-boat-infested waters of the Atlantic were slowly choking the supply lines to Europe,
Until his order stands. I have no illusions about the gravity of this step. I have not taken it hurriedly or lightly. It is the result of months and months of constant thought and anxiety and prayer. In the protection of your nation and mine, it cannot be avoided. The American people have faced other grave crises in their history with American courage, with American resolution. They will do no less today.
he said to Congress and to a tense, jittery nation,
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
He recalled our efforts toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. He grimly outlined the tragic and angry and
Always will our whole nation remember the character of the onslaught against us, no matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion. The American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory.
In the crowded halls of Congress and throughout every
With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God.
We covenant with each other before all the world that having taken up arms in the defense of liberty, we will not lay them down before liberty is once again secure in the world we live in. For that security we pray. For that security we act, now and evermore. We are now in this war. We're all in it, all the way. Every single man, woman, and child is a partner in the most tremendous undertaking of our American history. We must share together the bad news and the good news, the defeats and the victories, the changing fortunes of war. So far, the news has been all bad.
While the war raged along distant battlefronts, another fight was taking place on the home front.
I realize that it may seem to you to be overstressing these economic problems at a time like this, when we're all deeply concerned about the news from far distant fields of battle. But I give you the solemn assurance that failure to solve this problem here at home and to solve it now will make more difficult the winning of this war.
Another menace to our national security, and one of which
One of the principal weapons of our enemies in the past has been their use of what is called the war of nerves. They have spread falsehood and terror. They have started fifth columns everywhere. They have duped the innocent. They have fomented suspicion and hate between neighbors. Propaganda, of course, is the common sense of the common people, and that defense is prevailing.
the welfare of our fighting men long before the invasion of...
Among many other things, We are today laying plans for the return to civilian life of our gallant men and women in the armed services. They must not be demobilized into an environment of inflation and unemployment, to a place on the breadline or on a corner selling apples. We must this time have plans ready, instead of waiting to do a hasty, inefficient, and ill-considered job at the last moment. I have assured our men in the armed forces that the American people would not let them down when the war is won.
There were many who were fearful that the Allies...
All the United Nations say that the only terms on which we shall deal with any Axis government or any Axis faction are the terms proclaimed at Casablanca: unconditional surrender. Almighty God, our sons, pride of our nation, this day have set upon a mighty endeavor, a struggle to preserve our republic, our religion, and our civilization, and to set free a suffering humanity. Lead them straight and true. Give strength to their arms, stoutness to their hearts, steadfastness in their faith. They will need thy blessings. Their road will be long and hard. For the enemy is strong. He may hurl back our forces. Success may not come with rushing speed, but we shall return again and again. And we know that by thy grace and by the righteousness of our cause, our sons will triumph. They will be sore tried by night and by day, without rest, until the victory is won. The darkness will be rent by noise and flame. Men's souls will be shaken with the violences of war. With thy blessing, we shall prevail over the unholy forces of our enemy. Help us to conquer the apostles of greed and racial arrogances. Lead us to the saving of our country. And with our... In the future days, which we seek to make secure, we look forward to a world founded upon 4 essential human freedoms. The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his own way everywhere in the world. The third is freedom from want, which translated into world terms means economic understanding which will secure to every nation a healthy, peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. The fourth is freedom from fear, which translated into world terms means a worldwide reduction of armaments to such a point and in such a thorough fashion that no nation will be in a position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor anywhere in the world.
Under his leadership, war-weakened nations and remnants of scattered governments had become the United Nations.
What is now being won in battle must not be lost by lack of vision, or by lack of faith, or by division among ourselves and our allies. We must and will continue to be united with our allies in a powerful world organization
which is ready and able to keep the peace by force if necessary.
Along with the tremendous...
Let us remember, too, that economic safety for the America of the future is threatened unless a greater economic stability comes to the rest of the world. We cannot make America an island in either a military or an economic sense. Hitlerism, like any other form of crime or disease, can grow from the evil seeds of economic as well as military feudalism. Victory in this war is the first and greatest goal before us. Victory in the peace is the next. That means striving toward the enlargement of the security of man here and throughout the world.
Like
The better world for which you fight and for which some of you give your lives will not come merely because we shall have won the war. It will not come merely because we wish very hard that it would come. It will be made possible only by bold vision, intelligent planning, and hard work. It cannot be brought about overnight, but only by years of effort and perseverance and unfaltering faith. We seek to dominate no other nation, that we ask no territorial expansion, that we oppose imperialism, and that we desire reduction in world armament. We believe in democracy. We believe in freedom. And we believe in peace. So we offer to every nation of the world the hand clasp of the good neighbor. Let those who wish our friendship look us in the eye and take our hand. This new year of 1945 can be the greatest year of achievement in human history. 1945 can see the final ending of the Nazi-fascist reign of terror in Europe. 1945 can see the closing in of the forces of retribution about the center of the malignant power of imperialistic Japan. Most important of all, 1945 can and must see the substantial beginning of the organization of world peace.
The year 1940...
Fellow citizens, we cannot escape history. We of this Congress and this... Fellow citizens, we cannot escape history. We of this Congress and this administration will be remembered in spite of ourselves. No personal significance or insignificance can spare one or another of us. The fiery trial through which we pass will light us in honor or dishonor to the latest generation.
Only the passing of the years will crystallize his words and